it's been a weird year, certainly for comedy. And I feel like bad shows are now good shows, and like really
Yes.
bad shows aren't as bad as they used to be because we're so deprived. But what's, to your recollection, your most recent show where you were like, man, that sucked, you know?
Well, yeah, so definitely I think that my perspective has been skewed at this point because the last year we've been outdoors where you
Right.
can, you're like, I see a positive look on your face, but I have no idea if you're laughing. You don't seem
Right.
upset. You don't seem to
Right.
hate me right now.
Yeah.
And now that we're like kind of like in these weird restaurant, like semi outdoors, the laughs get captured a little bit better. But I will never forget when I was in the park. I was in Central Park over last like end of like fall or so. And the parks can be really fun sometimes and sometimes really bad. And
Yeah.
this was unfortunately the latter, for a very specific reason. The show was going fine, and I go up to do my set, and I'm doing okay. I have a decent amount of rapport with the audience, but it's like middle of the road. It's no, they're not loving me, but they'll tolerate me. And unfortunately, in the middle of my set, a homeless man enters the picture. But it's like, there's versions of homeless people. Like this guy was I think he was on drugs or something, like actively, and he was on the move. He was coming
Yeah.
in hot. And I
Right.
was like,
Right.
oh. So I'm doing my jokes and I'm eyeballing this guy, and he's like doing like erratic, like racing around the park. And I'm like, okay. And then he approaches the show, and I was like, okay. And he's standing like behind me, kind of. It is so I'm doing my jokes, but I'm very, very aware that this guy's over here. And he is yelling some stuff, and I'm just like, and where you don't like really know if you should, you have to acknowledge it to an
Yes.
extent. And I was doing a joke about like my boyfriend or something, or like marriage, getting engaged. And he comes up to me, and the audience at this point thinks like this guy was like, I know he's homeless, but he's a little bit better dressed. So it's, and a lot of comics look a little bit homeless.
Right.
So
Right.
the audience is like, is this like part of the set? What's
Right.
going on? And I'm, especially because I'm like trying not to react a ton. Like I'm trying to ignore him because I know the second I engage, he's gonna get really weird.
Yeah.
He comes up to me, and he's like standing next to me now, like trying to talk to me. And I'm like performing still. And things
Right.
are really starting to evolve quickly here. This is within the course of like a 30-second or so. So then he takes his bag off and puts it on the ground. And I'm like, he like gets down, and I thought he was like fake proposing or
Mm-hmm.
something. I was like, what are we doing here? The audience is completely, they were laughing, and then they're like getting kind of freaked out. And then he
Yeah.
starts digging around in his bag. And this is the point where all of a sudden I get really scared because I'm like, holy shit, this guy has a bag. Like, does he have like a weapon? Like, am I about to get like attacked?
Right.
Like,
Right.
what are you getting out of your bag? And I'm like, do I talk into the microphone or do I handle this? Also, excuse me, every other comic on the show, can I get some assistance?
Yeah, exactly. Where is
Jesus
everybody
Christ.
else?
Oh,
Yeah.
fuck, guys. I mean, to be fair, no one knew what was going on. Like,
Right.
everyone was just like, no fault on them, but I was like, hello. The guy is down there, he's digging out of his bag. I'm like, I might get knifed right now, so this could be happening. And then pulls out, thank God, not a knife, but a brush. And I'm like, didn't see that coming. I did not
Yeah.
see it coming, and starts aggressively brushing his beard at me. And I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm fucking done. I cannot. What am I gonna like do a bit after this? Like, I
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
go. Whoever's next, like, I'm coming off stage.
So
I've been
did
Laura
anyone
Sogar. Thank you very much.
did he leave, or did he just stay for the rest of
he
the show?
he I like kind of was like, you gotta go. Like I kind of yelled at
Yeah.
him a little bit, and he
Right.
like ran around some more. And then he's on drugs, so his attention span is like 2 seconds. He
Right.
bolts off, but then he comes back a little bit later. So it's just, when you're doing comedy for random people, sometimes it's wonderful because people are like excited that they're like, oh my God, a comedy show. But sometimes you get, real New York loonies.
Yeah.
And
And
like New
that's
York is, yeah. Sorry.
it's insane. We're like I don't think people get that. Like I don't think
Yeah.
people that aren't in doing this right now get the things that people have done to perform. Like if
It's
you were in a club,
that would
the
never happen.
you would never really have to worry about someone running around during your show and coming on stage.
I realized what really struck me in that is I was like, I have never felt unsafe on
Yeah.
stage. Like I
Yeah.
was like, all of a sudden this became like a controlling the show to being like control that I don't get hurt.
Right. Right.
Which is not a funny feel. Like it's not a
Yeah.
feeling you can joke. I don't know. Maybe I just need more years. Maybe the true professionals would have been able to riff on that, but I'm like, am I gonna get shot? No,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah. And it was also, to be fair, a pretty tense summer. So
It
there's that,
was. It
you
was
know?
that too. And unfortunately, I mean, this guy he was black. And I'm like,
Right.
I mean, I'm not gonna just out the gates yell at this man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I'm not trying to
Right.
get on the internet,
Right. Yeah.
but I also just want to stay safe.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely insane the things that have come out of this crazy time for comedy. So, and you make a great point where you're no longer worrying about the show, you're worrying about yourself. And that's a pretty jarring feeling,
I
you
was
know.
like very shaky after it actually, because I was like, I was like, I need to actually like kind of take a step back. The fact that I was trying to perform through it, I was like, that's
Right.
concerning, Laura. You need to have a little bit more self-preservation in
Yeah.
your gut. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not that important to do the show. Let's not get
Yeah.
shot. Let's not get shot or knifed. Let's make that
Yeah.
number one priority. And then good show is number two. A close second, but it's still number two.
Right. And also it just shows you the loyalty of comics where, it's as soon as things really hit the fan, they're nowhere to be found. Comics like to hang out and like talk and we're all in this together. As soon as someone actually needs help, they've all scattered, That's
It was weird. And they maybe didn't realize, like, I guess I probably played it cooler than I thought. Cause like,
yeah.
but I was just like, are we not realizing like the safety implications going on right now? Granted, I'm like, what are you gonna do? Like you're, smoking a cigarette. Like,
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's like what can anyone do? That's the thing when there's no
where's the police?
yeah. I know,
Fuck are
right?
you guys? No
Yeah.
worries, you'll come shut down the show in an hour when everything's fine.
Right. Oh my God, that's wild. What a mindset to have to be in, like to have to switch to. I mean, I've
I
been in some rough situations, but never had someone approach me on quote unquote on stage. Not that there was,
I know, like on my grassy patch. Like, this is my
yeah,
grassy patch. Get out.
right. And do you feel like because of that situation where you're in a park, there's no boundaries, there's no lines, there's no limits to anything,
Yeah.
that it's just a complete free for all?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's been so many. I love like that was definitely the most extreme version. And I hope
Hmm.
to never feel fear, like real safe fear like, on stage again. But
Yeah.
I've had one where they've started like full Zumba classes, like right next to us. Like, all right, like I guess we're doing Zumba now.
Right. Right. And you just have
Or
to keep going,
yeah, yeah, you just gotta just kind of do it. But it is, I will say that now it's like the amount of gratitude I have for even a shitty show, like you're saying, I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not gonna get shanked in the middle of this. So
Yeah.
should be fine.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there are indoor shows that are pretty bad, but they're never going to be as bad as like being under a tree at noon,
Yes. Yes.
So that's
Or
always
like
nice.
when people are like having a birthday party or something, like they don't want a comedy show. And you're
Right.
like, for some reason we've chosen this tree. So unfortunately, you're now in the comedy show. I did have
Yeah.
another one where this girl was blacked out, like obliterated. And she
Yeah.
came and tried to take the microphone from me to do her jokes. And I was like,
Oh.
excuse me, comics.
Yeah,
Sorry.
right. You must just have a very welcoming presence when you're
I
on
have a very,
stage.
that's my thing, is I have a hey, how are you face. Like I have like a let's hang
Yeah.
out, like let's vibe, which is good. It's useful for hosting a show and stuff like that. But
Right.
for parks, people are like, I'm gonna take her up on that.
Yeah. God, I don't usually give off that vibe, thankfully, where people want to approach me. Even after the show, which is always sometimes.
You're like, come on, man.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, hey, does anybody want to hang out? Uh, you also have done a number, which I give you so much credit for doing, but I don't know how you've done it. A number of shows on subways and in subway stations.
I have. What is wrong with me? Do I
You
have
know what?
no like respect for myself? I don't
I'll
think I do.
tell you, this business is not about having any bit of pride. You know,
I
by the
have
end of
none.
it, you're
Literally
so
none.
devoid of pride in any shame that you might
Like,
have had. You
yeah,
know,
like I'm like looking for pain, like what's going on. No, I've done a number of the subway shows now, and weirdly, like they're kind of like another show. Like it can be fun. The one thing I will say that I think a lot of people forget is we're bringing like, so it's done primarily through Stand Up New York. I don't, I'm
hmm
sure someone else has tried it, but those are the ones I've done. And they bring their audience. So it's
hmm
like everyone meets up beforehand. So the people who would otherwise go to the club, and they're kind of excited because it is a very novel, it's very New York, obviously, you know, in nature of the subway. And then you all get on the last car of the train together, and you do your set, and basically you're just in the subway car. What's the there's like obviously a ton of noise. You are physically moving, and like you're trying to stand, you're not holding on to anything necessarily, so you're like falling all over the place. The audio is crazy. Like we had there was so much feedback because people kept standing in front of the speaker, and I was like, you know, I've been producing shows at this point. I'm like, you have to be behind it with the
Right.
microphone.
Yeah.
Like you cannot. But like, you
Yeah.
know, comics, they don't necessarily think of that if you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And I had one of them, which was really fun. Well, not really fun. I was doing my set, and we get to a stop, and this family of tourists, first of all, I was like, it's a pandemic, but sure, welcome.
Right.
They have like the M&M's bag. We're like at the Times Square stop. They speak no English.
Oh
None.
my
There
God.
are kids. There is like it's like 5 people or so, a full family, and they surround me very close. First of all, I was like, "That, what are you doing?" And they were like, "How do you World Trade Center?" Like they kept trying to get to the World Trade Center, and they were
Oh
asking me.
no. Oh no. I don't they hadn't gotten the news. Oh no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I
You're gonna
was
be
like,
pretty disappointed when you get there.
yeah,
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah.
But they were like, so I was like, "Yep, you're on the right fucking train."
Oh
Thanks for,
my
oh
God.
no, just continue to stand right around me. I'm
So
like yelling
so
over.
yeah, like you're performing actively and people were they're taking the train to get somewhere, you
Mhm.
know, which is to be fair, the primary use of the trains.
I know it was kind of like, I was like, it's like when you get, you know, when there's bugs when you're camping, and you're like, yeah, I came into their world. Like I was like, I
Right.
can't be mad at these people by any means. Like this is completely fair for them to
Yeah.
be taking the train. Little weird that you're, you know, on vacation during the pandemic in New York City. We're in like February. Like what's
Right.
wrong? It must have been real cheap, the flights. Let me say that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think
Like
they were giving flights away to come
they
here.
were they were paid to come there and just visit the M&M store.
Yeah,
Please.
right.
The
My
big
God.
bags.
And it's funny because it's like you've seen this. We've all seen this if you've lived in the city for more than 10 minutes. The people that come on to your train car and either play music or
Right.
break dance or
Right.
ask for money. And you're like, oh my God, you don't even want to make eye contact. And then that's what we've become.
We've
We
become that. Exactly. 100%. I did a joke about that. I was like, if I could just flash, like 10 years ago, I was like on the US national team, like training at the Olympic Training Center. If I could just see a snapshot second of my life now, I think I'd be like, oh no.
yeah, right.
And I'm
Right.
like, you wanted to go do this? I was like excited to go do this.
Yeah.
That was my thing for the night.
Right. Isn't that insane
It
how
is
like desperate we are for stage time right now that we're just like, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, hell yeah, I'll be there. Are you kidding? With bells on, I'll be fired up. I'm like
Right, right.
genuinely grateful for the time. And it's weird because like you can still I'm actually super grateful for these shows because now from now on, I don't give a shit. Like,
Yes.
I don't give a shit. I will do whatever you need me to do, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll be, any response, like you're used to the varying responses, you're used to like how much the environment really does impact. I didn't think I had as big of an appreciation for the club setup before. Just like the fact, like the low ceilings, like having people in clothes and stuff like that, like how essential that is to comedy. It does not matter how funny you are. I mean, it's important,
Yeah.
but if you don't have those things, it's really fucking difficult, even for like some of the best comics to make it a
Yeah.
good show, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why it's worked for so long, with
Yeah,
you don't see a lot of clubs try to reinvent the wheel where they're like, you know what, we actually have huge ceilings
yeah,
and it's a really wide building, it's all the same. Because it
truly.
works, you know.
Yeah, I've been producing a lot of shows recently, and it's so funny because like you'll produce a show and you kind of try to find a location based on those, getting as close to those parameters while keeping a pandemic in context. Like it's a real delicate balance. But then the person who owns the venue will be like, "Oh, but we have this space. You can do a show there." And I'm like, I hear that we can technically have people in this space, yes.
Right.
But there is literally a bar in the middle. Like there are so many parts about this that would not work that I
Right.
don't like know, but it's not you, it's your space.
Right. Well, people really do think, if they're not familiar with comedy, that all you need is a microphone and people, and then you have a show.
Yeah.
I mean, the
And
amount of places that you go where they're just like, why? What's wrong? What's wrong with this? Well, all the lights are on. It's 4
yeah,
p.m. You have TVs playing.
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
to name a few.
Exactly. You're like, there's literally the bar in the center. Like, do you understand
Right.
like, how are we supposed to do this around? I don't know. So explaining that to the venue people, and I'm like, this is great for a cafe, but it's not.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
listen, if you need a show, I will do it. If
Yeah.
someone else
Yeah.
wants to run it, but I don't necessarily need to run mine.
Yeah.
I will be there with bells on, as I've mentioned.
Yeah, that's the best. It's like, hey, I don't want to be responsible for it. I mean, obviously, ask me to do a spot
Yeah, I
because
will
it's,
do a spot.
yeah. Please don't have a show and not invite me.
Yes,
Obviously,
yes, yes, yes,
but
exactly.
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about because you have a great perspective on producing. I mean, a killer show in the
Thank you.
pandemic,
I'm trying.
but
I
the
put my heart into it.
stress that comes into that right now, like that is hellacious in itself because you're dealing with so many requirements. You're dealing with trying to be out by a certain time, not getting shut down by the police, not getting shut down by the LCB. Like you're also trying to be safe for comics, for people. You don't want to, while it's great to have a hot show and you get all these pictures of people sitting around, you also don't want the attention sometimes. So
It
how do
is.
you navigate that?
Um, Let me just say that I'm a crazy person. Like I
Mm-hmm.
really very details and like I get into the weeds on this stuff. It's my personality. And thank God for it because it has been really hard to
Yeah.
do. We've been at 4 different venues at this point, all of them which have been wonderful, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. But we've had the police at our show, literally standing. Oh my God, I had one situation where there was the cops were standing at the entrance because they were like being kind in that they technically are not supposed to do comedy at all. But
Mm-hmm.
we've been very, very conscious of the spacing, the masks, the temperature checks, like all of that. So they weren't going to shut it down for that, but we were at like 9:55 and the
Oh
curfew
no.
was 10 p.m., which is still, we are going to look back on that and be like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? New York City, the city that never sleeps, we had to be in bed by 10, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But our show was running long because we had some tech issues earlier in it. And the last comic was on the stage and we had lit her. And then we saw and like, before we would have been like, oh, we'll be out of here by like 10:05, not a huge deal. But the cops were there and we were like, you need to get off stage.
Yeah.
You have never needed to get off stage more in your life than right now. Like, get the fuck off stage. Like, I don't know what to say, but like also not trying to like, you have to make it to where the show's good. Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't want the audience to see you stressing, but I'm also like, I am stressing. I am fully stressing. So she gets off and we jump on stage and we're like, okay, show's over. Thank you for coming. Please put your masks on. Everyone, masks on as you're exiting this place and leave immediately. Thank you. Like,
Oh my God. So did they get
um,
out in time?
yeah, we made it, man. We made it out. We were like 9:59. Everyone was out and they shut the door and the cops walked away. And we were like, that is not a level of stress that I think, again, it's like training with a weight belt. Like right now, like having to handle the police and also making sure everyone is safe through all of this. Cause like that's our number one concern is wanting,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like doing, again, now that I need to value safety, like for comics, for the audience, like number one. And we've been really lucky in that a lot of our venues have been able to provide what I believe is that. And it's like we're following all the CDC guide, but like beyond the fact that it is comedy and not music, everything else is allowed. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally just think that that's an arbitrary, Cuomo, whatever, hates comedy.
Yeah.
Who knows what reason he's had that. But I'm like, okay, so like health wise, this feels pretty good. But needing to do, like we had one situation where we had to go and tell all the comics that, someone there had been exposed. It turns out, thankfully, that he was exposed after our show. But like just needing to like kind of keep everyone in the loop. And it's a level of stress that I really don't want to have to deal with ever again in my life. But
Yeah,
also I'm just
that's
like, it's going to get so
wild.
much easier. Are you kidding?
Yeah, yeah. When you don't have to share the news that somebody on the show has been infected with COVID,
Oh my
that's
God.
how do you do that? How do you break that to a group of people?
You write a nice message and say, we don't know if he was infected when he was at our show, but we recommend everyone get tested and please let us know. And
Yeah.
also don't go to cancel your other spots.
Yeah,
That's the
right.
tough part is people are like, fuck, I don't want to cancel.
Right, right. Yeah,
uh,
because everything is so valued right now if you do get something.
yeah. So we were lucky though in that like it was very contained and we got lucky in that situation. We try really hard. We've had people obviously pull out because of health issues right before, and we're always like, I will rebook you if that happens because I would way rather you be super upfront about whatever's happening for your health and not come, because
Yes,
that
exactly.
is
Yeah.
so much easier for me to do than the opposite, where you're
Right.
like, and then you show up and I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah. Have you had that? You don't have to say who, obviously, but have you had the worry of like, you're like, I just saw your Instagram story and now you're at my show.
So
I'm not, like,
I
do you have that at all? Like concern about certain people or you're like, how do I handle this?
Well, I'm more worried about the comics hanging out at the show.
Yeah.
Most of the people, um, and I love having, obviously that's half the reason you run a show is for people to
Hmm.
come and hang and it's a good vibe. But that's a much bigger concern for me is the people who I don't have kind of like eyes on or who I know have been like all over.
Hmm.
Um, Also like the people we book are generally, they're very professional. Like they tend
Hmm.
to, it's mostly like we've been very lucky to be able to get some very strong comics on the show. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of shows going on. So, we've been blessed in that sense. People who'd be touring, otherwise they
Yeah.
wouldn't be around. And but they're very good about it. But the people who come to hang out sometimes, I love them to death, but I'm just like, you're in those different Facebook groups where you see someone just be like, tested positive, you should get checked if you're around me. And I was like, don't come to my, I
Yeah.
hope you
Right.
weren't at my show, man. Like, and it's just really luck of the draw. But that's why you
God.
do the temperature checks. That's why you keep the space. That's why you have it hopefully outdoors. We're doing one that'll be indoors, and I like really was very like it is high ceilings. It is not an
Hmm.
ideal space for comedy in the long term, but I think for this it'll work pretty well. We'll see. I don't know. It's coming up.
Yeah, that's exciting though. And it's just so impressive to that you can navigate that and also navigate working as a comic because I don't think people know. I mean, both are full-time jobs.
Yep.
To the point where but people only usually do one,
Yeah.
like they
Yeah.
either usually produce a really good show and book shows or they are on shows and it's like, well, hey Matthew, what's
Yeah. I
up,
was like, what are
dude?
you doing, man?
Hey,
Hi, just
what's
got
up?
walked out.
Special guest appearance.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah.
Back to the farmer's market.
Nice. I hope we got some
Oh,
good
no
stuff.
worries. Don't close the door.
Perfect. This is
Whatever
actually
you
what
want.
this is what
Oh,
the
great.
podcast turns into. It's just couples counseling. Yeah. So I hope you guys are ready.
Yeah, me
It's a
and this
very cute
cat.
cat. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, you've managed to do it, and as far as balancing both, do you have to limit yourself on how much you're gonna focus on one thing for how long of the day you're gonna sort of work on producing or work on writing, or how do you
Yeah,
sort of keep the balance?
I will say that unfortunately my writing has definitely slowed
Mm-hmm.
in the last couple of months because I was so stressed about the venues and stuff like that. So I think it's just kind of like I've been viewing it as like there's ebbs and flows, like sometimes you have to work really hard on the producing to get that pulled together and the writing might go down a little bit. And then, but obviously I want to be like, I like producing, but it's not like I'm doing it because I was like, well, there's no shows. So if I want to do a show, if I want to
Yeah.
perform, I
Right.
better make it myself, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and yeah, so I think it's just like kind of getting like knowing when to focus on which one and kind of like navigating between that and not beating myself up. Like reality is this is crazy. Any sort of being able to perform right now is a win, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
more time, it's more just keeping everything afloat until things normalize a little bit more. So and the other nice thing about producing is it really becomes kind of like a routine process. The initial setup is hard. So knowing what everything is going to be, like how to, make all your flyers, the Instagram, etc. But now that we kind of have everything set up, it's more just like rinse and repeat,
Mm-hmm.
plug in comics, guests are the people know about the show and they'll buy the tickets. If you need more, you run an ad or whatever. And it's kind of know what to do and it doesn't require as much mental effort. So then
Yeah.
I can focus more on the comedy side. But again,
Wow.
I'm crazy. Like I 100% appreciate that a lot of people would not want to do this level of work. I enjoy working, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So
Yeah, it's obvious. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I want to ask you this before we get out of here. My favorite question to ask comics is after a bad show, for whatever reason it is, maybe the police are outside or somebody has brushed their beard at you. What is the thing that you like to do to sort of cope or feel better after a bad show? Is it like a food thing, a drink thing, a movie, a show, like what's sort of do you have
yeah.
a ritual, that you like to do?
Um Definitely I usually try to like allow myself to feel the feelings during that time, especially like I think more traditional bombing that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
When a show goes bad, like I was shook up by that person brushing his beard at me, but I was like, that's not on me. That's not like I fucked
Mm-hmm.
up, like that's a special circumstance. The police showing up, that's a special circumstance.
Right.
I'm gonna be like a little worked up, but I'm not. It doesn't hurt nearly as bad as when it's a normal show and you do your set and it bombs. That hurt so much worse.
Oh yeah.
And whenever those happen, which all the fucking time, like
Mm-hmm.
you win some, you lose a lot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, which is fine. That's how you learn. It's how you get
Yeah.
better. But then I will generally try to have like a glass of wine and play some video games and let myself just be really fucking pissed that night. And then the next day, just be like, okay, it's not productive to keep focusing on it. Hopefully you do another set and you can just have a good set after and then be like,
Yes.
reset. It doesn't matter. Ha ha. I got myself out of the loop.
Right.
But otherwise I just get really pissy for one evening and then try the next day to brush the feeling off and have at least figure out what productive I can get out of it. Like, what did I do? Is there something I can change next time? Because beating yourself up, you need to do it to an extent, but it's also like can get counterproductive,
Oh
intuitive.
yeah. Yeah. When it's, a
Wow.
week out and you're still not, you know,
Yeah,
seeing people.
I know. And I get that like I'm, at the stage of my career where, oh no, 20 people didn't like you. Oh
Right.
well. Versus like if it was like a TV appearance or something like
Yeah,
that.
right. Yeah.
That I don't know how people handle.
Yeah.
I
I think
hope you
it
figure it
just
out one day.
yeah, I think it's the same. I think it's
Yeah.
usually like a glass of wine and something to take your mind off of it. Because I think that the stress is relative. Where like wherever you are at your career, it's the biggest moment that you're
Right.
having. So whether it
Yeah.
is 20
Great way of putting it.
people or whether it's Comedy Central, you don't know if you're performing for 20 people and you want the show to go great, you have no idea what it is to perform for Comedy Central or
Right.
whatever. So if you bomb, it hurts just as much because you've never experienced that other thing, you
That's
know.
true. That's true.
So it's
Your
it's
emotions
all
are
yeah,
relative.
it's all relative to the situation. So I think you just you learn how to deal with it early on healthy in a healthy way, which it sounds like you do because it's just one glass of wine. If a glass of wine
Well,
in a video game and then like, being a little grumpy is it, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on how bad the bomb is. It's like
Yeah, right.
that's the amount
Yeah.
of glasses of wine that
How long they didn't laugh. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how
exactly. I'm
long.
like, that's a bottle. We're at a bottle now,
Yeah.
everyone. You better
Yeah.
start fucking laughing.
Right, yeah. Do you want me
Yeah,
to get hammered tonight, folks?
yeah.
Is that what you want?
Because I'll do
Uh
it. Damn it.
yeah. Yeah. I'll do it here. I'll hold everybody
Yeah.
hostage until I'm
I
hammered.
feel better. Yeah.
Yeah. Laura, I can't thank you enough for doing this, for
I'm
your
so
time.
happy that, yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Of course. Tell people where to hear you, where to see you, about these shows, these killer shows that
Yes.
you're
Come to
running.
the show. It's on Thursdays and we do a bunch of random one-offs and stuff like that as well. Hopefully more now that the world is thawing and getting vaccinated. But the
Mhm.
show is called Brooklyn Underground Comedy. You can find us. We're switching the handle, so I think by the time this comes out, it'll be switched. So look Brooklyn Underground Comedy on Instagram. We post all our stuff. And I produce 2 other podcasts too, because why not?
Mhm.
I hate myself. I just only want to work. It's apparently what I want to do. But I do really love them. They're so wonderful. She does stand up too with Matthew, who poked his head in here, which is
Mhm.
nice because we're talking about like me doing comedy with him as the backdrop of like the wise, have been doing it for 10 years professionally, dude.
Yeah.
And my other one is called Risque Business News with May Planner. And we talk about business news because that's another area I love. And it's just crazy and so funny. And I just feel like we don't give it enough respect or like chat about it enough. So
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you again for doing this, and
yeah,
best of luck with everything.
yeah, we'll see you around. I mean, you're on
Yeah.
the show frequently, so come through.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right on.